So I had a YouTube comment on a different balance patch video of mine that asked me, Smoothie, you make a lot of these. Do the newer balance patch videos invalidate the older ones you have? Have you changed what you wished for, or do you just kind of want everything all at once? And the answer is that you'll never know, because these are more like notes, and more importantly, you can't just balance a character. You have to balance a game, and whatever character I'm thinking about the most at any given point in time is going to change what the rest of my feelings are. However, kit design is definitely more important than overall balance, and Turn A's kit has some fascinating problems. Um, Now, what a Turn A player would probably tell you is they would compare their character to a lot of other characters with a lot of benchmarks, and I don't think that's actually the best way to look at the problem. In fact, you could be comparing Turn A to characters that aren't even in the same role if you aren't careful. Turn A is a low tier character, but they're a defensive low tier character, and they aren't quite as unorthodox as something like Mahiru, where if you're playing Mahiru at all, you're in it to be weird. uh, Turn A is more like an almost rifle character, except these charge shots aren't really hit scans, so they don't truly fill your anti-flyer quota. But your G maneuver is butterfly, so you kind of want to also be playing them on maps where flying is viable, and that puts them in a very supportive role. And they're a low tier support, like I've said. So what happens when you're a low tier is basically you take larger risks, right? Um, if you have a 10% chance of winning the match and you see a 20% chance to kill all 6 people on the enemy team, you're going to take those odds because you might think, well, 20% sucks, but it's better than my odds otherwise, so I will take them. And that leads Turn A players to use this very defensive grab aggressively instead of, protecting their tank. And that is what makes people play this character more like a rifle and less like a support, when really these slow charged shots mean that you're not competing with Pale, okay? You're competing with Dom on this character. Um, so what would I actually change about Turn A first? The answer is not the grab. I want to add 2 more bullets to the magazine personally. So if we look at these charge shots, you can do 500 to the head, right? You hit a 1K twice and you've vaporized them, and technically speaking, you only need to shoot one more time to get rid of their body. And although that does consume, 6 bullets, it's much more efficient than your hip fire. Your hip fire, on the other hand, is hit scan, but just to do 900 damage, I gotta click 5 times on some guy's head. And again, very DPS efficient, very useful part of the weapon. I think Turn A's primary is incredibly comfy. But what really, really kills you is when you use these little half charges, where you consume 2 bullets, but you only do 40 more damage than a hit scan shot. Um, that is a massive waste of ammo, and I don't know if you could make it just so that they consume less, but having 2 more bullets in the mag would definitely help alleviate that issue. And it gets around circumstances where, let me go over here and fry one of these guys so I can look at a disabled mech. So if you are unwise enough to not do a fully charged shot on this guy, 1, 2, 3, I shot that guy 3 times and he didn't go away. So if you're wondering why Turn A's have such fat crit rates, it's not just because they hit these, it's because they might get like 3 crits per disabled mech, which is really bad. But it puts you into these positions where you might have to reload just to kill a disabled mech. Or even if, like after you kill him, you might have to reload again so that you can enter a fight with full ammo. Because again, you do not have many shots in the mag, and this is like a compounding issue. And you don't even have like a good reload either. You have a good reload cancel, but this reload itself is the longest reload in the game. Yeah, like you jump from 9 bullets to 10 almost instantly, but what are you reload canceling with, right? This grab, it's one of the worst reloads in the game, and you can't escape it the way Sazabi, for example. If I'm reloading and I say, wait, I want to shoot someone, I can just change my mind. But turn A, if I'm down to 3 bullets and I decide to reload and then someone I could kill in 3 shots runs by, I can't just be like, oh, frick, and then decide to stop reloading and shoot him instead. Any reload on turn A could theoretically be a mistake, as opposed to Saz, where like you can just mash that reload key as long as your shield is still on your arm. I would definitely add 2 more bullets to the mag. I would maybe consider making the reload faster. And, you know, if his reload cancel is going to be so early, you really may as well just make the grab reload your gun in the process. I don't really see why not. I don't think he really needs it, but it would hardly be a buff anyways. The next most important thing I would consider is maybe giving him some kind of a reward for hitting a flyer with these slow charged shots. I can't make as many objective suggestions for this as I could for stuff like his abilities, but I also think it's the most important thing to bring up because, again, turn A's ult is a large part of his value, so turn A has to be run on maps where flying is viable, and turn A sucks at shooting flyers, which is the ultimate paradox of his kit. The fact that he's a support, that kind of makes him dependent, but the fact that he needs to be on a map where characters he sucks at fighting are extremely viable sucks, especially since those characters like Ashe is a rifle. He's one of the better anti-flyers in the game. Zeta is a rifle. He's a better anti-flyer than Turn A, the both of them are. And that is what really sucks for Turn A. So honestly, if you wanted to do a wacky patch where like hitting an Ashimar in flight mode with a fully charged shot just took him straight out of flight mode, hell, maybe it gives him like a Marasai Sea Snake shock until his feet hit the floor and you can like run up and grab him. I would be super down for something weird like that. There are other more objective changes you could make, like I said, but fixing this paradox is what would definitely make turn A conceptually relevant, as opposed to just a character you run as a support for Saz. And don't tell me like, oh, why doesn't Dom get that, bro? I landed my direct hits on Dom. Dom's bazooka isn't a headshot weapon, so you're getting full damage on headless flight modes if you do manage to pull that off. And on top of that, you have a laser that is also not only a hit scan weapon, but also a headshotless weapon. So, I mean, like, Dom isn't good against flyers, but his ult is a stronger version of Butterfly that works on the ground. So, he's kind of not supposed to be. And honestly, he's kind of better at it than Turn A in a lot of ways. Lastly, I want to bring up the more comparative kind of benchmark issues with Turn A. So let's look at this nano skin, right? 20 seconds is a lot of time. You could take 2 seconds off of this and it would still be longer than Pale's pod refresh time. But the other issue is that if I press Q, I don't get an ability reset the same way Pale does. Pale, as long as his pod isn't already on the ground, he gets his pod back just for pressing his Hades. You do not get your regen skill back for pressing your butterfly button, and in all likelihood, you don't want to butterfly until this skill is off cooldown. So, you know, on average, you're waiting like 10 seconds after you actually get the butterfly before you can even think about using it. I do want to reiterate that Turn A is really not the best duelist, and they aren't even designed for this role. Let's say you're fighting over a mini, right? You're fighting an Ashimar. Maybe you start off with an advantageous position. You know, you're guarding the mini, and you're guarding it with your grab. You're saying, if you try and take this, I'm going to grab you. But what happens is you get mollied by Ashe. You back up, and now maybe you're like right here and Ash is in here, and now you're in a symmetric position where both of you have an angle on this, but neither of you is closer or able to keep someone from looking at it. Uh, Ash spent one ability to do that. You spent one dash to get out. He has 2 dashes of mobility left and flight mode. So, you know what? He's probably going to have a much better time getting that mini than you are. Maybe you're fighting a Gundam, right? You can straight up grab Gundam's hammer, but if you don't grab him, he's gonna put his shield up and he's gonna stand on a mini. And guess what? Your mag is tiny, and his hammer comes back faster than your grab does to boot. I think giving Turn A another 2 shots in the mag would be fine, because he's a support in my eyes. He should be able to spam. This should be like an artillery character. He should have a mag that almost feels like it's a little bit too big. Um, on the other hand, I don't think buffing the grab to the point that it's an excellent dueling tool is necessarily a good idea. It's not like he has a bad primary anyways, but he is a support character in my opinion, and I don't think this should be an incredibly aggressive tool. Nanoskin could stand to lose 2 seconds off of its cooldown, and for sure, you should get an ability reset when you press Q. Uh, as for his ult, I think one of the things that makes Turn A stand out the most as a support character is the fact that he does have a very strong ult. This is just the kind of thing support characters have. Um, Dom has one, but if we look at the kind of dependency hierarchy in this game, there are characters like Ash who can clear out space with a molly. There are characters like Saz who can subsequently anchor that space and maintain it. And then there are characters like Dom, which add value to different types of space on the map you could take. Dom, you can say, well, let's go take high ground and put Dom up there. And then Dom can use the value of high ground to in some way help the point that Saz is standing on that Ash cleared out for him. But support characters are definitely third in line on that dependency hierarchy, and what video games do to upset this is to give these types of characters really strong ults, and I think this extends beyond Gundam Evolution, but these characters have those kinds of ults so that they can make a very big impact that does not necessarily require the assistance of other people, and instead other people are sort of following in their lead. Turn A's butterfly ult, it is definitely sort of a problem that it relies on having at least one other person be some form of a distraction, but it is still also a very strong ult. And I think that does solidify Turn A's role as more of a supportive character who should have ammo to spam with and not a super nice grab that necessarily competes with Gundam or Marasai as a rifle stunner type character. Turn A really does not need to be the duelist who can just run up and grab someone on a mini, unless it's, a Sazabi who has one dash and you're punishing the fact that they spent their one singular dash. Other than that, I think it's fine that Turn A depends on an ally Saz to be contesting this mini. It makes sense considering what his kit can punish. And just by virtue of the fact that he is a supportive character, he does not need to be the best duelist. That's fine. But I am very adamant about being able to shoot flyers out of the sky and ground them with charge shots. I really think it's worth the experiment. And if that sounds crazy, let's take it further, actually. Let's say his ult makes him count as a flyer, right? And if a Turn A zaps another Turn A with a perfect charge shot in ult, he gets grounded. I don't really recommend that, but just think about it, right? That would make it really, really important to run Turn A, because if the other team has a Turn A and you don't, you can't do that to their butterfly. And everyone would say, wow, you're really making it like you're really trying to force Turn A, aren't you? And that's how flyers work. this character is a rifle. This character is a hit scan who can shoot flyers, and he is a flyer. Methus is the only counter example to this, but this is how Ashe works. This is how Zeta works. They all have this factor, and that is in addition to the fact that they are DPS instead of support. So, like, supports, they literally just deserve this factor more than DPS does, in my opinion. Also, we want more characters for noobs to play that are good against Barb, right? Like, we're balancing for all skill levels, as Game Master would say, right? This is a really good idea, isn't it?